Minister, it may not always seem obvious at a cursory glance that the impact climate change will have on defence and on our defence forces. So I do want to ask you the way that emissions from the defence forces are accounted for under the carbon budgets and sectoral emission ceilings, given the increasing acknowledgement that climate change and defence will be intrinsically linked in view of the COP26 United Nations Climate Change Conference.
Yeah, Deputy, I have a very long answer to your question here, which I'm not going to start reading, but you'll get a copy of it. But can I just say that the Climate Action Plan follows the Climate Action Act, which commits Ireland to a legally binding target of net zero greenhouse gas emissions no later than 2050 and a reduction of 51% by 2030. These targets are a key pillar for the programme for government. The Climate Action Plan sets out a course of action over the coming years for to further progress Ireland's response. The plan sets out ambitious decarbonisation targets for key sectors: transport, industry, built environment, electricity and agriculture. The defence sector isn't a specific sector identified in the National Climate Action Plan. The public sector is required to show strong leadership and commitment to drive the decarbonisation goals we have set for ourselves, and the Defence Organisation has a positive track record in this regard. The plan also requires strong buy-in from private sector businesses and all other households to make a concerted effort to reduce energy usage, conserve water and so on. It's an important part of the Climate Action Plan that public bodies will lead by example, and certainly the defence sector is no exception to that. And there are multiple examples of us leading in this space in terms of how we manage buildings and energy management in our barracks, and we have incorporated that into our capital investment plans in terms of efficiency and energy management and essentially green procurement as well. I also think when we are looking at replacing ships, for example, efficiency and energy management will be a big part of that, and it is. So, no sector is exempt from driving down emissions, and that includes defence as well, and that will certainly be factored into our capital investment programme, and in fact it already is.
Deputy Clerk. Thanks, Céim Corley. And Minister, I do accept fully that there is a balance that needs to be struck here between reducing our own emissions, but also ensuring that we continue to equip the Defence Forces to be able to respond effectively and efficiently to the challenges and threats that also come with climate change, be that at home in terms of the fires that we seen last night or the excessive flooding that has taken place. But in terms of climate change and that climate impact, how are we also equipping our forces to be able to respond again with that effective and efficient manner in our overseas roles? Like, we have seen increased desertification, we are seeing increase in sea levels and the impact that has on the movement of people and the increase in refugees. And it's why that I say it is a difficult area in some respects to be able to get a grip on. But because of our role and the role that Defence Forces play, I do believe that there needs to be a specific plan in this area. Yes, we need to reduce our emissions on one side, but we also need to be increasing capability on the other side to respond to that climate change globally.
Minister.
Yeah, I think it's just important to put on the record that energy efficiency and decarbonisation are prioritised agendas already within the Defence Forces. The Defence Forces have been recording energy consumption of its buildings and transport since 2007. And has reduced its energy consumption by 20% since its baseline year of 2009. The Defence Forces reports its total final consumption through the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland monitoring and reporting system. In 2020, the activities of the Defence Forces accounted for 46.8 million kg CO2. The Defence Forces which since 2012 has been independently certified to an international energy. The Defence Forces Senior Energy Executive approves the annual energy plan of action for the Defence Forces. The SEE has been examining courses of action to achieve 2030 decarbonisation across all energy types. The current plan of action includes energy-saving initiatives across all domains: naval, air, road transport and infrastructure. So that's happening there. In relation to adaptation and response abroad, It's no secret that we are trying to advocate on the Security Council at the moment to actually get a resolution agreed on climate and security, to recognise that the UN needs to be more active in that area.
Deputy Clarke.
I suspect, Minister, this is a conversation that we could have for a number of hours as opposed to a number of minutes. But I do want to reference a comment that was made by the previous Chief of Staff, retired Vice Admiral Mark Mallet, when he said that Ireland has a false sense of security and the state needs to position itself to deal with the problems caused by climate change, but specifically in relation to the government's commitment to offshore renewable energy generation by 2030 and the proposed development of those offshore wind farms, be it around Cork Harbour or the East Coast, and specifically in those regards the security and monitoring responsibility that will ultimately find its way into our naval service. Has there been any work done in identifying the primary and the secondary needs of our Navy to be able to address those future needs? 2030 is going to come around very quick, Minister, before we know where we are. We'll be into another general election and then we'll be into 2030. So we know, and as Deputy Brady has referenced, when we visited Cork Naval Base as a committee, one of the issues that was brought up was that ability to be able to see underneath our seas. Now, in terms, again, of going back to this future development by government of these offshore wind farms, the question is, what capabilities have been identified as primary and secondary for the Navy?
Yeah. The first thing I want to say is that there is military-civil conversations going on all the time between the Defence Forces and the Department of Defence in terms of prioritising capital spend. And so there are plenty of conversation opportunities in terms of prioritising subsea surveillance systems, if that's what the Naval Service wants to do. But we need to do that together with them. In terms of anticipating what the maritime security challenges will be in 2030, and I think that is taking place. I'm very familiar with the plans for offshore wind development off the south coast and east coast, and indeed west coast as well. And if we have a very significant offshore wind presence by 2030, that's a good problem. In terms of security for us to be responding to, because we'll be producing very large amounts of energy offshore, which is exactly what we need to be doing from a sustainability perspective.
Thank you, Minister.
So I suspect that is that certainly will be part of our capital expenditure plan and resourcing up to 2030 for the Naval Service.
The next